Oh boy, it's Mike. He's King of the North. He's a singles collector, and I'm John. I am from the banks of the Delaware River here in Philadelphia, set collector, and we're here to talk about set collecting and singles collecting. Michael, how are you doing?
Great. Always looking for hot singles in my area. How are you, John?
Oh man, I have I'll have to forward you some of the emails I get then. Maybe I can put you in touch with they're actually desperate singles. I get desperate singles. So yeah, I'll put you in touch. Today's February 1st when they're airing this thing, but today is when we're recording it is January 31st, which is a huge day in baseball, right? 3 massive birthdays. Can you answer the 3 birthdays?
Nolan Ryan.
Okay.
Oh man, I can't remember.
You are a junk wax era through and through, man. Nolan Ryan, right? Ernie Banks, Mr. Cub, and Jackie Roosevelt Robinson, who you may have heard of him. Yeah, it's you have any of their cards? You have any of the big cards?
I have a Jackie from 54.
54.
You can't see it quite there, but if I just
the yellow Jackie, yep, I see it.
Yep, I have some. I have a 70 and 71 Nolan Ryan, and a bunch from the later 70s and 80s and 90s, of course.
Sure.
Who was the other one again?
Ernie,
Ernie Banks.
Wow.
I don't have an Ernie Banks card. I've been eyeballing his rookie.
Okay. He's got very few, if any, bad cards. Ernie was one of those guys, obviously, who conveyed his pleasure for the game in many ways. And I think his baseball cards also declare that the happiness for the game. So, yeah, 3 big legends. I'm not sure if there is a bigger day than January 31st in baseball, birthday-wise. I know Griffey and Musial were born on the same day, but it's a pretty big deal for those guys. So, I know a little bit about the old stuff. You know a little bit about the new stuff, and I think that kind of defines the way we collect, set collecting versus single collecting. I don't think that it is a hard line. I know it's not for me, but it's a soft line, and I cross over. How about you? What's your take on this perceived difference in collecting styles?
Well, if I'm being honest, I was a set collector as a kid. I had binders and boxes of sets. And now I'm a singles collector, and a large part of it is simply space restrictions. You have this amazing, I assume it's your basement.
Yeah.
With so much space for cards. I also am in my basement, but don't have very much space. This is just a little corner of my basement where I work, do my day job, and I've got a cabinet right here next to me, and that's where I keep my cards. And the rest of this is laundry space and a little living space and storage and stuff like that. So I have to restrict what I buy. And so I came to and I have a couple sets. I have a handful of sets, but I've also really started collecting in binders again. And I've got binders stored in my cabinet. But you have this, I'm just looking at your background and what's behind you. You have hundreds and hundreds of boxes, right?
I do, and what's behind me, and it's also the background, the wallpaper behind us on camera here. That's some of my stuff. I have space. I'm an empty nester, right? There's no that's a benefit, I guess, but I don't think that me collecting sets is not a new phenomenon. But I do have a finished basement, and it wraps around my. This is just baseball kind of behind me, and I have a rack with hockey and non-sports stuff. I have another rack with basketball and football and all that stuff. So I'm fortunate enough to have space, but I've always been a set collector, and I mean, I trooped a lot of this stuff around the country at various times, thanks to UPS and stuff like that. And I would send the stuff in bigger cardboard boxes across the country, UPS ground without any care, just the way it was. But I've moved many times in my life and taken the cards with me, and I haven't always had the space. But I'm fortunate now that I can actually spread out and not keep stuff kind of hidden away. So, but I think, I'm from a more simple time. There is no doubt about that, where you had to collect the top set, 660 cards, 792 cards, 726 cards, whatever. And that was it. That's all you had to worry about. So completing a set, people like myself were trained to complete the sets. There weren't really factory sets per se back then. But that's all you had. That's all you had to do. There was no other motivation. We weren't searching for rookies or, there weren't any, there wasn't a lot of big game in the 70s, especially in real time cards that you had to have. So I think that's my upbringing in the hobby is how I am now, right? They say that once you stop drawing for fun as a kid, that's the level you stop as an artist. So, if I pick up a pen and draw a caricature right now, it probably mimics when I stopped drawing for fun when I was 5 years old or 6 years old, right? So it's the same thing with my collecting. This is kind of inbred in me or bred into me at this point. You come from the next half generation, I guess, where you have to make a decision, right? You had some sets growing up, like you said, but you couldn't have every set. Right. And Topps dominated my era, but your era, there was a lot of competition and maybe Topps wasn't the best. Right.
Yeah, I was a Donruss kid, but also Topps, and I couldn't afford Upper Deck for the most part. I had a little Upper Deck, so when I dug out my collection from my childhood, there was just a very little amount of Upper Deck because it was too expensive for my family. But I was able to get Topps, and I mowed a lot of lawns, shovel driveways, and ride
And
my
you
bike to
collected that by opening packs or
all
factory
and
sets? You get factory sets back then. So
never, ever, ever bought a factory set. Never bought a single as a kid. Would only buy packs. And I would ride my bike to my LCS and buy packs, and then I would bring the packs home, open them, and then insert the new cards into binder sleeves.
Mhm.
And if I had dupes, they would go into boxes.
Right.
Nowadays, I don't. I still love opening packs of cards. That's just such a joyful feeling, but it's also outrageously expensive. And I still love those 25, 50-cent cards. And so I would much rather go to a card show and pick up a handful of 25-cent cards,
Mhm.
maybe buy a great card that would take me 50 blasters to find for, and you're paying what's 50 times 30, $1,500 for all those blasters. I might pick up a great card that I love for $50 instead
Right.
of buying all those blasters. And that makes a lot more sense to me than the alternative. But I have the last 2 years been putting together Topps flagship set because I can do it super cheap by just asking people for their commons.
Right.
Can I have your commons? And they'll either give them to me for free or I get them for next to nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. It got complicated in the 80s, but the turn into the 90s when Donruss and Fleer and Topps and Upper Deck started making Flair and Stadium Club and Pinnacle. I mean, Score was there and Pinnacle and Triple Play and like all these other sets. I think it became like it's almost like they were forcing you out of the set collecting game. There was so many sets. I mean, we have a name for it, obviously, Junk Wax Era, but it was like, how do you maintain as a set collector if they're going to keep throwing the product at you. So
Focus on specific sets,
right, and
specific products.
yeah, but how do you choose? Like, you know, if you know you have 20 sets, there's 20 flagship sets, or I shouldn't say flagship, but 20 complete sets you can pick that are hundreds and hundreds of cards per set. It's like nowadays, who buys record albums? Everybody's buying singles or downloading singles, right? It's kind of the same thing. People don't buy albums anymore, for the most part, right?
My friend Mike only buys records.
Okay.
He has a room. I should show it on my channel sometime.
I mean, but that's
thousands of records. It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean that's he's a diehard, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
The Apple, you know, iTunes, which you know became the deliverable, the person, you know, your basically your pusher in the music. They didn't want you to buy the album so much; they wanted you to buy, you know, 20 singles instead of one album. 20 different singles from is $20, right? Back then when it was 99 cents a single. Buy 20 singles as opposed to buying one album for $12.99. They'd rather push a song on you at a time. And I think that whether this is by design or by, you know, the result of what had happened back then, you know, I think the companies would rather you buy singles, open packs, than buy factory sets. And I'm surprised that I'm surprised that there still are factory sets. And would the hobby, you know, there's a lot of crisis actors in the hobby, but would they rise up and burn the village down if Topps stopped producing factory sets?
It's interesting because factory sets now have hits in them, right?
Because they have to, right? Well, I guess they always have. They always had to some extent. They've always
But
had.
you can, you know, there's a chance. I got one for my birthday a year or two ago, and it said you have a chance at a Wander Franco patch card or a Wander Franco autograph. And at the time, that was very exciting.
Yeah.
So I opened it. I did a whole video on opening the set, hoping that I'd get the autograph, but it was a player worn patch.
Event worn, you mean?
I think it said player worn.
A player worn at a photo shoot. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. They throw 30 jerseys on you. And
yeah. That's you know, they've done that. They did that in the early 90s and stuff like that. Not obviously not relics or anything like that, but I just feel that they would rather you buy. Would they not rather you buy an $80 box of product, whether it's a hobby or retail box, as opposed to a $60 set? They'd probably rather you buy a box and open cards, right? Because that may lead to another box. That's just for if you're targeting set collectors, which I think are the minority of people these days, right? Because not a lot of people are putting sets together that way. That's a tough grind.
Right. The types of sets I'm doing, other than that Topps flagship, which takes up no time or money, is like I want to collect all of the Yaz playing days cards on the PSA does a master list. I don't want them all in PSA slabs, but I want them all in a binder. Every card or item from his playing days, the PSA has graded, and so
flagship or flagship.
Any, no, it could be Topps, Donruss, could be any.
Yeah, but he made a lot of products, man. Ball sets. Okay.
It's I don't remember how many cards it is. It's a lot. It's a lot of them, but most of them are cheap, so you can get them. And then I'm doing the same thing with Pedro Martinez. I'm considering starting one with Nomar Garciaparra too. Of course, it gets more difficult with Pedro and Nomar because their career started in Pedro in 91, Nomar 96-ish, 97-ish. And so there's just so many cards. It's outrageous. And my Pedro binder is already very, very thick, although all the pages aren't full, of course, but I still need a lot more. I think it's going to be 2 binders.
Well, yeah, that's crazy. Do you know how many cards that is? How many do you have right now?
And how many unique Pedro cards?
How do you keep track of that? TCDB
spreadsheet.
Okay, but what do you know? What do you know is out there if you don't know, right? Like, how do you find out where to hunt?
PSA master list.
That seems pretty cumbersome.
Yeah, it's not I should check out
Yeah.
TCDB.
Yeah.
I have probably 350 unique Pedro cards, and I haven't gotten through all of it yet. I'm still working on it.
All uniforms or just socks?
Great question. I love Pedro as a Expo, Dodger, and Red Sox.
Not a
I
Phillies
have
player.
no Phillies, no Mets. I
Okay.
have a lot of them from that era, from 2005 on, but I don't want to look at them. So
Okay.
I have them in a box right now. I don't know if I'll end up adding them in. So I've got 91 through 2004, and then I need to decide his 2005 cards. Some of them are in a Red Sox uniform and some are not.
Mhm.
Do I keep the ones that are in Red Sox uniform, or do I just do a hard cutoff after he left the Red Sox?
Well, that's the good thing about that is the way the hobby is now, you can do whatever you want,
Mhm.
and collect whatever you want. I know it's tough. Some people struggle when their player gets traded these days, active players, Shohei may be an example of that. There is an internal conflict that goes on with some collectors about that. But we also have now, thanks to ESPN and stuff like that, we have more people that collect players that didn't even play in their hometown. So there's probably just as many Shohei collectors that aren't in Southern California as there are. So that was a big turn the hobby made, the player collector as opposed to the set collector, singles collector. I think that's a huge, and what you say is correct. Like um I've changed my thinking. I still collect sets, but I can't collect. I have cards from 5,000 different sets, 4,950 sets, right? I can't, individual different sets. I have cards from nearly 5,000, and I'd be lucky if I completed 2% of that over the course of my lifetime, right? And I'm talking about the big sets too. So I do purchase, I've found myself purchasing singles as well. Like I'll participate in, Mike O sells cards every Tuesday night on his YouTube channel. So I'll buy cards of dead guys, modern cards of dead guys, Honus Wagner, Babe Ruth, stuff like that, and with no chance of completing those sets. So I've changed my thinking a little bit. I guess I'm kind of doing both, right? I buy the factory sets for flagship. I chip away at my old sets, right? I'm less than 5 away from my 70 football and my 73 football, and I'm collecting singles as well. Now I don't do the rainbows or the runs or whatever like that because I think it's a little too much, and it takes. I think that they're the manufacturers are kind of like diluting the fun of that by the the contrived scarceness and all that stuff. So I've it's helped me become a better collector. I'm not a good collector, but I'm better than I was. But it's still at heart, I'm a set collector, and I don't think that'll change.
So you have how many sets? You said there are 5,000 different sets you have cards from,
I
and
have cards
2%
from
you do average.
4,950 different sets.
So does that mean you've completed? Because you said you've completed 2%. You have
No, I'm saying
150
if I
sets.
complete 2%, it'll be a miracle. Like you could see here on the wallpaper, that's from the 80s. That's right there alone. That's 33 sets from 81, 90. So that's 30 sets. And then there's other ones sprinkled about various scores and stuff like that. So just that rack alone probably has about 60 sets completed. And then I have my binders with all my 1970 stuff completed. And then back into the 60s, I have a couple 50 sets completed. So I have sets completed, but it's, I'll never complete them all. I mean, some of those sets are 8 cards, of course, and a lot of those cards are in the hundreds. The mega box or monster boxes behind me have a monster box from every year, starting from 1990 on, and some are filled with sets, and some are filled with 400 cards that I'll never get the other 260 of, for whatever reason.
You must be working on dozens of sets, like really working hard on dozens of sets at a time.
Yeah, I mean this travels with me. This book travels with me, and I don't have a lot in there, but I have. Here's an example: 1957 space cards, top space cards, which you probably have no idea what they are,
Never heard of it.
but I also have. Here's my 1961. So I went to. I was gone for a couple weeks. I went to Arizona, then Vegas, and in Arizona, I went to a card show and met up with. It was a 20 table card show in a room smaller than my basement, but I probably got 100 cards for my 61 top set, my 64 top set. So one of my things is if you go to a show with a target, you have a pretty good chance of walking away disappointed. But if you go to a show with you're keeping your options open with a lot of stuff, then there's a good chance you'll come out of it with something. So
If you go with a target, you're also much more likely to overpay
yeah.
when you see it.
Yeah, that's true. But you get yeah, I mean, you find it. I mean, it's a natural thing in this hobby as the closer you get to completing something, whether it's a set, a big set, or a set of singles for your player, if you're going to overpay when you get close to the end, right? Just to put it to bed, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the sets that I'm working on are very expensive at 53 tops, 54 tops, 55 tops. So as I get closer, I will pay more. I paid $8 for a 54 common last night, and I probably should have paid $3 or $4 for it. But as you get closer and you wanted to put it to bed, the aggravation factor, you want to close that out. So I'm guilty of that for sure. I don't know whether you have been guilty of that or whether that's something that occurs in your realm of collecting.
Of overpaying for something that fits what you need.
Yeah, as a singles collector, right? I mean, that last I don't know if you're going to get the last Yaz Player Day card because there's
years
too
away.
many of them. Yeah, there's too many.
There's 11 Pedro Martinez prospect cards. The only 11 Pedro cards I want in a slab there's a Pedro prospect set with PSA, and I have 9 of the 11 right now. And cards 10 and 11 are outrageously expensive on eBay
Prospects
right now.
prospects meaning like real-time prospects when he was at the Dodgers?
Yes, when he was 1990, 91, and 92, before his career
When
started.
he was the second best Martinez on the Dodgers.
That's right. Ramon was a fantastic strikeout pitcher. Yeah, I loved Ramon too. I've got this Ramon and Pedro autographed by both from 1991
I couldn't believe, I thought Ramon was the guy. And then I'm like, what are you talking about? He's got a younger brother, and they ship him off to Montreal, right?
So my point is that the cards are available. Those last 2 are available to me on eBay for way more than they're worth, and I've seen them sell in the past for half what they're going for right now. And I've made cases to those eBay sellers. Hey, this card has sold for half of what you got. I'm willing to pay you half or 2/3 of your asking price. And
okay.
I get no. So it's very tempting to just pay their asking price, but I'm going to be patient. I will be patient because there's a lot more that I can do.
I'm looking at my store right now to see what Pedros I have because I have a bunch of Pedros. So we'll have to get together after we're done here to see what I could send you free of charge. Because looking at the 93 Topps Pedro there, I know you have that.
I certainly do. I have a lot of them.
94 Collector's Choice Silver Signature. There you go.
94. I'll have to look. We'll talk.
We'll talk later. But again, that's stuff that I have so many cards, and space is a big thing, I think, like you said, because a lot of kids, in the junk wax era grew up real quick, went all the way to college and all that stuff. And I'm the more I think about it, it makes complete sense that has a big thing to do with people's collecting style too, perhaps, coupled with the other factors. But space is space. Now, you say you have limited space. What does that mean when you reach that limit? are you in danger of reaching that limit, and then you get rid of stuff you don't want, or like
I
good companies chop off the bottom 10%, right, to make room for the next wave of
yeah,
potential greatness.
there's a lot of room, and there's a lot of stuff that I can cut off that doesn't fit what I decided on my collection a year ago. A year ago, I said, this is what my collection is going to be, and I'm going to get rid of 75% of what I have, which is just like I have player lots from the 80s and the 90s, Red Sox, a lot of Red Sox player lots. Do I put a lot of them into binders and I have more space for binders? Or I don't know. I love binders. Do you do binders or do you only do
Yeah,
boxes?
it's funny. I went through a binder phase, but again, keep in mind that, and this may be complete like Greek to folks of your generation, but the first shot around on binders was it ended terribly for my generation because of the PVC pages.
Mm.
So I don't know whether you've run into that, but it turns your cards greasy and stuff like that. It doesn't ruin the cards because I have a lot of PVC bindered cards that I still have in my collection. I don't care. Like a good portion of my 53s lived in PVC binders for decades, but there's a bit of being gun shy due to that. With that said, I've learned to embrace them. They take up more room in a binder than they do in a 800 count box.
But they're more fun.
They are more fun. Now, here's
I can
I
stand up binders. I have a half wall. I don't remember what the technical term is for a half wall in the basement.
hip
And
wall.
it's a hip wall, yeah.
Okay.
So I can stand up binders and they look good. If I
Mhm.
stand up boxes or stack boxes on the hip wall, it doesn't look great. It looks
Yeah,
cluttered.
dress them up with fancy labels though. Maybe they look good.
Yeah, yeah.
So my 70, after I've had the 1980 top set complete since 1980. I finally got around to bindering that within the last 2 months. Okay. So I have 68 through 80 in binders. I have 56 in binders. I have 58 in binders. My rule was not to binder until I was done or almost done. This week I bindered 64 tops because I was running out of room in my monster box in my 60s. I was running out of room. So I threw it in there, and that's like 500 cards that I have for 450 cards. So I threw that in there. I just bindered my 70 and 73 tops football, like I said. So what you find when you do that is it's so entertaining, right? Because you can't do it without looking at the cards.
Yes.
You can sort cards by flipping the pictures upside down and numerically sort them and never see the fronts. But you can't avoid the beauty and the ugliness of some of these cards and pictures. And of course, I'm speaking a lot of the 70s stuff, right? Like if you spend some time bindering 70s football cards, you'll be amazed at how some of these guys were ever athletes, right? And it's fun. It's fun to look at the pictures. It's fun to see the names, all that stuff. So I've gotten great joy. Like I said, in the past week, I got home Saturday, so I've done 3 binders or 4 binders since Saturday, and and I don't care what the binders are like on the outside. Truth be told, I put labels on them, and they all kind of look the same, but it is fun. And what I do with my existing binder sets from the 70s baseball and beyond is when I do end up getting like an eclectic collection that has a bunch of different things in it, that's when I go back and do conditional upgrades. So that's fun as well. That's something that's not easy to do when cards are in a box because you have to physically pick up every card instead of flipping through a page. You can tell whether card 589, the new one, is better than the old one immediately without having to go through everything and stuff like that. So I found that bindering has brought me joy. It's not my preferred method, but it has brought me joy recently in the last couple of years.
Yeah, I have pretty low standards for the cards that I collect for binders, like my Carl Yastrzemski collection, all in a binder, and I don't know what they would, most of them would grade a 4 to 6 maybe. So in my spreadsheet, I won't note condition unless it's poor, unless it's just in terrible condition and looks bad in the binder. And so in the spreadsheet, I might put, I have the 1968, but it's in poor condition. And that way, when I'm looking at a show or in an LCS, if I see whatever card has poor condition, I might buy it and upgrade, and then probably give away the poor condition one. Go ahead.
Yeah, Yastrzemski is my favorite player, and it's an interesting topic because I had, you know, his base card player run done again in real time when that ended in the 80s. So I've been done that forever. I collect, obviously I seek oddball stuff, and more so it's deeper than oddball now because some people consider Deckle Edge or the game 68 Tops game oddball or the coins, and it's beyond that, right? See, that's the kind of stuff right there. Is it the Fleer sticker?
Yeah, 84.
Yeah.
Just
so oddball is like, oddball now means like really oddball. I'm talking about like the Globe Imports Carl Yastrzemski card, which I don't know whether you've ever seen that, but it's something you don't see. You don't see it very often, right? So it doesn't cost much. You just can't find it. So long story short, or slightly less than a long story, is like all my sets back there have Yaz's, and meaning his card, his leader cards, any kind of all-star cards, they all have that in them, all the complete sets. Now through the glory of the community of card collectors that I've you know, reluctantly been accepted by all these other collectors, I get sent a lot of Yaz stuff, and of course there's redundancy, right? I've had a lot of Yaz cards for many years. What that's done is now I have a Yaz binder, which is made up of two kind of cards. One is cards that people send me, like the 69 All-Star card, which I have, but I have now, that's where I put those, and I write the name of who sent it to me on the penny sleeve, put it in there, all that stuff. Because I can't, A, I can't give away a Yaz card, and B, I can't give away a card that a friend has sent me. So I've done that, and that ranges from, I think I have like a 61 or a 63 on up, and that's where all the new stuff goes. Because as we know, they keep making Carl Yastrzemski cards. They keep coming out. So that Yaz binder isn't complete with all his player day runs, because all that stuff is it's in the 800 count boxes or the binders with the sets, or it's in the display case next to me over here. But it allows me to have something to do with that. Like I have 12 1980 Yaz cards, so it's a page and a third of that beautiful Yaz up to bat 1980 with the AL All-Star banner on it. So I find that to be fun too, because that's where some of that stuff goes now, you know, and it's neat to see. I got another 68 All-Star Yaz card. I pop it in there next to two other ones, and it's fun. I enjoy that. So that's what I do with the extra Yaz stuff, because A, they're gifts, and B, they're Yaz, and I can't part with the Yaz stuff. I can't put it on my store or anything like that. I have to keep all the Yaz stuff. So I have a Yaz binder. It's a little different story than yours, but it's just as fun, I think, to collect and look at. Yeah.
So I know we're running late here, but one more question for you. You mentioned 56, your 56 complete set.
Yeah.
Are those in top load binders or just a standard 9-page 9-sleeve binder?
So my 56, I've gone over this a couple times, but my 56 set, I had whatever 100 and something 56 cards, or you know, that I had been collecting since forever in various states of beauty, perceived beauty or real beauty. And you know, I had other stuff. I've had the Aaron forever, Jackie forever, Koufax, all that stuff. So my LCS, I worked out a deal last year with my LCS on several things, and it netted me essentially a complete set minus the cards that I had already had, which was the the Aaron, the Mantle, the Koufax, and the Jackie. So, you know, I told him he could keep that all. So with that said, yep, the Jackie, the
Koufax autographed.
Yeah, with that said, most of those were fives, right? And the reason I know that is because he had sent all the Hall of Famers away, and they all came back fives to SGC, except for Pee Wee Reese had a pinhole that somebody had pinholed, so that came back a whatever one or oh no, it had two little initials on the back and a pencil, so it came back a two. So that set is mostly fives, and mostly in the binders, all the commons in the binders, everything but the Hall of Famers are in the binders, just in penny sleeves, and of course they're in the eight pocket sleeves, not the 9 pockets, right? Because they're a little bigger. And the slabs I have scans of that I put in those slots as well. So the slabs are in a box somewhere, or they're in my display case if they're the big guys. But all the Hall of Famers are slabbed, and mostly are fives. And in place of the slabs in the binder is copies of those slabs, graded copy. I actually put it on a sticker, a 2x4 sticker, and put it on a little piece of cardboard and slide it right in the slot. So
I've been thinking about that because I have some Yaz slabs, trying to
right.
figure out what to do with the slabs that would go in the binder, and obviously they're not going to fit in a regular binder. That's a really good idea. I like that.
People do that, and I'm surprised because it seems to me it's very bulky. But I mean, to each their own. Like a binder of slabs seems just counterintuitive to me. Yeah, I haven't done it myself. I don't know how many slabs you get per page. Is it 4?
4. I just
Yeah.
bought over Christmas a binder for PSA slabs with some pages. It's a lot of space taken up for a small number of cards.
Yeah. And I put the other ones in a shoebox. So a 2-row shoebox, which has a bunch of slabs in it. So to me, it's, I don't, since I'm not actively working on the 56, and since I'm not actively trying to upgrade it, because like I said, everything in that set is a 5, because I know that because all the Hall of Famers came back as 5. So I'm rarely going to find something out in the wild as a toss in a collection as a 5 for 56. So I don't look at that set as much as I should, because to me it's complete at a 5 grade. So on my 58, a little bit different. I put that together by hand, more the traditional manner. So that is definitely due for some upgrades. But with that said, there's some cards in there that I probably will never take out. I have a Lou Burdett card that looked like a Velociraptor, was playing with the front of it, and I love it because it's got so much personality, right? It's like this, I'm not sure I will ever, when I finish my 63, I'm not sure that won't be my Koufax, my 63 Koufax. So I just realized it was good, but it has a rip in it now too. So,
as a kid, I found riding my bike through the roads, and I found a Mark Bavaro card. Now, I grew up in Maine, but the Patriots were not on TV when I was a kid. I was a Giants fan.
Bavaro was a Giant, yeah.
That's right. He was. The Giants were on TV because the Patriots didn't have a local TV contract in Maine. So everybody here was a Giants fan. Some still are, but mostly became Patriots fans in the 90s with Drew Bledsoe. And so I loved Mark Bavaro, and I found a Mark Bavaro card in the road that had been run over dozens of times. But I loved that card.
It was a sign, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you could see it was just had dimples covering the front of it. It was great.
Yeah.
I loved it.
Yeah, I mean, I part of what the joy of collecting for me is, and it's been homogenized a lot, but what is the stories of that card, a card. I have tobacco cards, obviously, and I have, my 1950 Jackie card, that 50 Bowman Jackie, that I've owned longer than anybody else has owned, which is fun, but it'd be neat to know what the story was before it came into my hands in 1982. Right. And we don't get that as much, people to collect singles, and it's just not modern singles, because somebody like our colleagues, Danny and I forget what the other guy's name is, but he's not that popular anyway. Nobody knows who he is. Anyway, I would consider them singles collectors. I know Mike deviates. He buys the set every year, but he buys the set as a keepsake, more as a journey in his collecting. So, singles don't necessarily mean modern singles or even, junk wax era on. Like Mike Moynihan does his Hall of Fame runs and his greatest 300 hoochie makuchis, and Danny does his Baltimore Orioles. So it's singles collectors spans spans the whole spectrum of collecting ages as far as eras and stuff like that. Set collecting, it's done differently, I think, between the eras, right? Like you have patience, a lot more patience, I think, with the vintage than you would with the modern stuff. Or people just buy the whole sets, right? I guess. So
yeah.
But it's it's been an evolution for me, which is great because I've learned, I'm learning, and it's helping me understand other people in the hobby more. So I appreciate the education from singles collectors because it's helping me become a better collector and a more expansive collector, I think. Yeah. All right. So what else you got to say here?
I'd love to hear what other people think about sex. Oh boy,
sex.
Set versus
singles in your area.
Oh man, let us know in comments. John and I, we always read through all the comments.
We do, and sometimes we give saucy retorts. Sometimes we give compassionate retorts. When I say we, I mean me. But we'll try to retort nonetheless. And am I supposed to play the video again, or do we just say goodbye? What happens?
Just say goodbye.
All right, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thursdays we drop, as the kids say, and please enjoy everybody else, both on Bench Clear and all hobby content creators, because they're putting themselves out there, and it's fun to hear the stories. No two collections are the same. No two stories are the same. I know this because I know a pair of twins that collect nothing like each other, even though they grew up together. So your collection is yours, and enjoy the crap out of that, right? Say
Absolutely.
Goodbye.
Thanks, John. Thanks, everybody, for watching.
All right, folks. Bye.
Bye.